Hello and welcome all of you fellow arcanists out there to the Frith Guild Podcast, where we explore the amazing world full of mystical creatures and their partners. This series will be covering Shammy Stovall's books from the Frith Guild Chronicles to the Astro Academy, and finally to the Crown Tournament series. I'll be talking all things mystical creatures within the series and more. Hello, my name is Eric. In this first episode, I'm just going to go over a quick introduction with me and kind of go over some thoughts for the podcast as I'm starting out here. First and foremost, I live in North Carolina, so anybody in North Carolina that's listening, hey, how's it going? If you want to reach out to me on my Facebook page or through my email, by all means, I'll have all the links to that in the show notes. So I haven't actually been reading in a long time. I finally decided to get back into it. I grew up reading Harry Potter. In the last couple of years, I decided to read the entire Lord of the Rings series. And I have to admit that my wife was the catalyst to getting me into reading as much as I have. And I actually wanted to pick up a book after the first time in a very, very long time. And figured it's a great time too, because my son is 3 years old and he's starting to be impressionable. So I'd like to see him have a good example of watching his parents reading books. Some interest that I have outside of reading books is mainly video games. I'm huge into the Legend of Zelda series. I have started with the Nintendo 64 with The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time and moved on from there, progressed in there. For those that are understand that series, that fandom, I'm sure you completely understand where I'm coming from with that. I also am into Skyrim, so basically the RPG games that single player I've highly enjoyed. So I got into Shammy Stovall's books in March of 2023. I was scrolling through Kindle Unlimited and happened to stumble upon it. Don't remember how I got there, but nonetheless I did, and I have to admit that I was instantly hooked. The downside was that when I found this book series, it was about 11 o'clock at night, so I was just enamored by reading through and was wanting to do nothing but read. And unfortunately, I had to work the next day, and I stayed up way too late reading through these books. And that was not even just the Nightmare Arcanist, which is the first book in the series, and but that was for all the Frith Guild series, all of the Astro Academy series. And as soon as Crown Tournament came out, I was adamant about reading that one. Biggest reason why I started into this podcast was mainly because I haven't seen any other podcasts that were out for this book series, and I've really enjoyed it, and I've always been interested in starting a podcast myself, even though I didn't ever really see it actually coming to fruition. But here I am deciding to start this podcast, this journey with everybody else, and hopefully everybody will be willing to stick through with me. And as we will be going over in the rest of the podcast series, I'll be going over several chapters in each book, one book at a time, starting with the Frith Guild Chronicles Nightmare Arcanist. I'll be going over several chapters and then talking about them, and then discussing different mystical creatures that are in there. So I will say that this is going to be a spoiler for anybody that has not read ahead of where I'm at. I will be discussing mainly what item, what's going on within those chapters, but I can't promise that I won't slip and accidentally spoil something. So please, if you are reading along with me and listening along while you're reading along, keep up with the chapters that I'm reading, so that way nothing gets spoiled for you, because we don't want that to happen. We'll try to have a podcast listed every week or so. kind of testing things out to see how things go. So my goal is to have at least once a week, and so that way we can keep moving along with the chapters in the Frith Guild Chronicles, and then again moving on to the Astro Academy and the finishing up with the Crown Tournament. And hopefully by the time that we get done with the entirety of the podcast, we'll have new Astro Academy books and new Crown Tournament books. I know Sammy Stovall has said that she's trying to have the next Astro Academy book finished by 2024, early 2024. So fingers crossed to that. Looking at a quick summary of what the Frith Guild Chronicles, Astro Academy, and the Crown Tournament goes over. Starting with Frith Guild Chronicles, it starts with Volk Savan. He is entering into adulthood and is looking to make a better life for himself than he currently has. He is trying to become more and prove to the world that he's not everything that the world says he is. This world involves mystical creatures, which are taken from a plethora of different mythologies. Some examples are unicorns, griffins, dragons of various sorts, phoenixes, and each mystical creature, has its own unique abilities depending on its particular breed. And with the vast amount of mystical creatures that Shane Stovall brings into this book, I will include an additional section in the podcast known as the Bestiary to go over all of that information about each individual mystical creature that she introduces or discusses in that set of chapters. With this, I'm going to conclude today's episode. You can reach me via email at frithguildpod@gmail.com, frithguildpod@gmail.com. I'm also on Facebook at Frith Guild Podcast. I'm also on iTunes Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Podbean as well. I'm looking to expand to all and any podcast streaming platforms. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.